Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blackwater Report. I'm Ken, and today our very special guest is Erin Nisewonger, who is campaigning for District 2 here in Santa Rosa County. And she has agreed to come in and speak with us a little bit about her campaign, a little bit about herself, and some thoughts that she has on District 2 and Santa Rosa County. So, hello today. Thank you for being here, Erin. Appreciate it. We want to start off with the question we always ask everybody. Erin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first, I wanted to say thank you for inviting me onto the podcast and giving me the opportunity to speak on my platform. But I am a mother of 6. I have 5 boys still in the house.
Oh, wow.
I have 3 grandbabies that are the same age as my 2 youngest. So it is a very fun dynamic.
Yeah.
I am a proud veteran. I served in the U.S. Army as military police. And then I was afforded the opportunity to marry a combat veteran who is a lifelong resident in Santa Rosa County. I have served several years in civil service with the Department of War. So it was the Department of Defense, but now Department of War. I worked within security, law enforcement, and then I transitioned into logistics and budgeting here at NAS Whiting Field. So I was over government contracts and the budget and logistics of 74 employees. I also worked with the homeless population, so I was able to meet the homeless population in their most vulnerable states and help find them on the streets, assist them for housing resources, medical resources, and just meet them where they were and give them, the opportunity to feel like they are loved and see who they were. I also have a master's degree in national security, and I have an undergrad in psychology.
Very nice, very nice. So you have you got some experience.
I had a little bit.
A little bit, yeah, right.
Different, a lot of government experience in a different term, but I have some experience.
Yeah. And well, and it goes into our next question, but and we say this with everybody who comes through. This is a very nice area. We all enjoy it. Santa Rosa County. There's a lot going on here, especially in District 2. But what led you into politics, and then specifically for the District 2 seat? What led you in that direction?
So I've always had an interest in politics. So growing up, my grandparents always told me the importance of paying attention to the local government races as well as the federal, state and federal level, right?
Sure.
But when something that always comes to mind is when in grade school and middle school, when it was time for polling, they used to have polls in the schools while we were in school. And my grandmother always worked the polling. And so I looked so forward to see my grandmother take part of the election process and do her due diligence as a citizen. So I've always enjoyed politics, but I never wanted to be a politician.
Sure. Yeah.
So what got me into this race is my husband is a current civil service worker. And we moved to Hawaii for 4 years for his job, and then came back. But I kept paying attention to different Facebook groups and keeping in contact with family of things going on in the community and the county. I knew there was a lot of development and growth happening, and I saw the gripes and complaints of the residents of infrastructure and things like that, of stuff happening on Woodbine Road and Berry Hill Road. So I was aware of things, and so when we came back, I was aware of where not to buy a house.
Right.
So I kept that in mind. But when I came back, I expected to see more than just the housing overdevelopment. I knew there would be some lack of infrastructure, but I assumed to see a little more economic growth, a little more infrastructure, from roads to bridges to the necessity of sidewalks. And so when I came back, I saw these things were lacking. And I saw that there was an issue, and so I decided to jump into action. And instead of waiting for the next 4 years to see the result, I said, if I see an issue, I need to see what I can do to help my community instead of waiting for 4 more years.
Kind of jump in and get involved a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's interesting that you part of your planning when you were moving back or moving to the area was looking at the infrastructure and looking what kind of the sore spots were, and then trying to avoid those areas. I guess, and that's what kind of the planning there. So your purchase of a house
Yes.
was led by trying to avoid some of those areas.
Yeah, the highly talked about high traffic hotspots.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Interesting. And I would imagine that you're probably not the only one. I'm sure there's probably lots of people who decide where to buy a home based off of things like that.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I think it's something that we need to take in consideration of people moving here. If they're able to say, here's the sore hotspots, we need to, start looking at that, in order to fix some of the infrastructure. But that's what led me to get into this race.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Let's see here. So our next question is, what do you believe is the single biggest issue facing District 2 residents today?
So I think District 2, the biggest issue is also the biggest issue with Santa Rosa County as a whole. But in particular with District 2, I think it is going from more of a rural area to more of a developed area. And so, there's a lot of new developments happening on within the East Milton side, on the other side of the bridge. And, we're looking at 6,000 more homes in the next year that is being, built in East Milton. And so when you think 6,000, that's a lot, but you also have to look at the average home has 2 vehicles. So that's not just 6,000 people, that's now 12,000 vehicles traveling on from East Milton into Milton, and the infrastructure can't even take what is currently there.
Right.
So and so that's where I had purchased a home with, but I didn't know, all the additional things that were being built in the works. But if we don't work on the overdevelopment that is happening within District 2, and that has already happened and continues to happen within the rest of the county, I mean, we have to prepare and be proactive and not reactive, and stay up with growth trends. And if we don't do that, then we're going to constantly fall behind, and we're almost $1 billion behind in infrastructure as it is.
Yeah. It's important. It really is. And we know growth is going to continue. That part is kind of a given. And so we got to keep pace
We have to.
with all that, and plan accordingly. Okay. Let's see here. Santa Rosa County continues to grow, as we're talking. Santa Rosa County continues to grow rapidly. How would you balance growth and preserving our community's character and quality of life?
So this has several spots that I want to hit on. One, there's a lot of there's a couple Florida statutes that will not allow the county to stop development. However, there are 2 ways that you can slow down development. One is we have to make sure that we're looking at the rezoning of lands and parcels of ag land in particular. Stop rezoning. That will slow down development and growth in order for infrastructure to keep up. The other thing that we can do is we can vote no on development plans that increase density. So if they're high density projects, we don't have to allow that development to happen. And it does not, and it allows us to kind of skirt tail around the Florida statutes that are in place to stop us from allowing building. So I think those 2 ways are really paramount. Another thing that I think we need to take in is the soil classification of the agricultural lands, because with soil classification, it has to do with how fast the soil absorbs the water.
Sure.
So when you are looking at the soil classification and it's prime 1 soil, we need to make sure we are not rezoning that, because that acts as natural conservation and a natural resource that we need to protect.
Right.
And if we protect that, that will help with the flooding issues and the erosion and contaminating the Blackwater and Black River water in the Yellow River.
Right.
So that's another thing that we have to make sure that we do, is looking at that soil classification. Protecting the coastlines.
Yep.
Is I'll touch on that a little bit more of natural resources, but we have to look at that. But we also have to look at our critical natural resources that are limited, like our water. So East Milton, currently we have a water table in East Milton that supplies the water for the south end of the county.
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure we are protecting those water tables to, because if we run out of water, what are we going to do?
We're in trouble.
Tax hikes, so that's going to decrease the quality of life for residents. When I'm hearing residents when I'm out there talking, they're also talking about green spaces. We need to make sure we have enough parks and recreation centers and just green spaces for the community to enjoy. And it may look or appear like we maybe have enough green spaces now, but our projected growth is massive within the county. So Santa Rosa County is one of the top counties in Florida for projected growth. We're also within the 5% nationwide for projected growth. So when you're looking at that, you have by 2030, approximate 24% of population growth expansion. And by 2070 is approximately 59%. But with that, we're losing 60,000 acreages of land. So if we don't start, again, going proactive versus reactive and going, okay, we may have enough for this population, but what about the additional 12,000 people? Where are they going to take their children? And so we have to make sure we don't turn Santa Rosa County into a concrete jungle that looks like a suburb of every other major city within the United States. The other thing I think that is paramount to speak about is the looming threat of data centers.
Sure.
I think that is extremely important. Right now, it depends on the governor race.
Yeah.
Of how that is going to go. But if we bring in data centers, that's going to decrease the quality of life for Santa Rosa County and get rid of our charm of Santa Rosa County, because now it's eating up our natural resources. And we depend on those natural resources for our tourist industry, which is our revenue.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we don't allow data centers to come in. They take up approximately 5 million gallons of water per day. 80% of that is evaporated. 20% of that is put back into our wastewater treatment facilities. 20% doesn't seem like a lot, but when you take 20% of 5 million, our wastewater treatment facilities cannot handle that. So it'll overload our water treatment facilities, which will be devastating to the residents of Santa Rosa County. So, if they use up all of our water tables, now we're looking at a process called desalination. So currently, California is having to take place in this process because they've used up all their water, and that can cost $10 to $100 million.
Yeah.
Santa Rosa County working families, we can't afford that. That would massive, egregious tax hikes. It would increase our utility costs. Our usage fees would go through the roof. So we have to make sure that we protect and we're fiscally and responsible with our natural resources in order to protect Santa Rosa County and keep the charm of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have such great soil here, and the wetlands that we have do an excellent job in the filtration of our fluids and water. And we had Commissioner Rhett Rao, who had come in. He talked a little bit about some of this, the great soil we have, some of the best soil in the country.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the residents here are in support of protecting that as best we can, especially going forward.
We have to.
When we have so much growth and we know it's coming, but we have to be thoughtful and strategic.
Very strategic.
How to deal with it. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Okay, great. Let's see here. So, kind of along that same line, we have traffic and infrastructure remain major concerns for many residents. What specific improvements would you prioritize?
So this is an important but difficult question. Again, most of the residents in Santa Rosa County, this is probably one of the hottest topics. The issue with it is that the major roads that are usually talked about are state roads, not county roads. So our hands are tied in a way, right? But what I could do as a commissioner is make sure that I foster positive relationships with Florida Department of Transportation, the Transportation Board, as well as collaborative relationships with Escambia County and Okaloosa County as like a shared resource, and then bringing in the military communities, because they're already talking about our traffic crisis and the traffic issues are causing mission readiness issues.
Absolutely.
And if we allow mission readiness issues with all the surrounding bases surrounding Santa Rosa County, now we're talking about national security threat. So now we're elevating the threats that this county, is subject to. So if we have collaborative relationships of going, okay, what can you bring to the table? This is what we can. What can you bring to the table? Because all of us, those counties are affected by the mission readiness of these military installations. I think it will help move forward certain projects, um, making sure that I have data and bringing forth what the residents are actually saying to make sure that these projects are moving up the ladder instead of going down the ladder with FDOT.
Right.
But another important thing to mention is a lot of times with these grants with FDOT, it is a dollar for dollar type of match. So we have to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. We have the capital improvement plan, but we need to make sure that they have so much allocated right now for Woodbine as well as Berry Hill.
Right.
But we need to look at the areas strategically along with the projected growth patterns. Because, if East Milton is going to consistently grow with several thousand more residents, we need to make sure that's maybe pushed forward a little quicker than another area that's not seeing the projected growth. So we have to look at the big picture in order to make sure that we're allocating our funds appropriately, and that so we can show FDOT that we're a shareholder in this. We're willing to have a stakeholder and say, this is how much money we're bringing forward. Can we use this grant in order to match it?
Right. Absolutely. Having a plan.
You have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And right now there's no plan.
Yeah.
It's been talks for 20 years and another interesting fact I think is important is 20 years ago is our growth in Santa Rosa County has increased by 75%.
That is a wild number to think about. And, for those of us who've been here quite a while, you were able to see where Santa Rosa County was 20 years ago. And to see it now, you think, where'd all the people come from? But they've come from all over the country. Some of them all over the world. They're coming here to Florida, and a lot are coming here to Santa Rosa County in Northwest Florida because, it is nice. It's a good place to live, good place to raise a family. But yeah,
But where was the action 20 years ago when we were seeing this growth trend?
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's why we have to stop talking and start acting, because we already know, I brought up, by 2070 there is an expected growth of 59% more.
Right.
So we have to stop talking and we have to start acting.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, very good. So let's see here. So next question, and this talks a little bit about economic development and local business. So how would you support local business while attracting new economic opportunities to the county?
So I think Santa Rosa County is in an interesting spot. So we obviously are big in the tourist industry, and they're not going to go away no matter what we want or what we like. They're here to stay.
They want to come.
They want to come here. So I think we need to capitalize on the tourist industry while leveraging high value tourists. And so what I mean by that is right now Santa Rosa County has a marketing partner that has been targeting household incomes of $100,000, and now they're increasing it to $150,000. And just with that $50,000, they're noticing a massive increase in the dollar spent ratio, even if they spend less time in the area. So targeting the proper tourist industry that we want, that want to come here not for a destined Panama City vacation, but one that is based on relaxation and adventure of the old Florida.
Right.
So that's how we can make sure we keep the old charm and the charm in the southern part of the county, as well as the charm in the agriculture. A lot of people now are trying to get away, the younger generation is trying to get away from the big city, getaways, and they want weekend destinations of what life used to be back in the day. They want to be able to unplug and go back to their roots. That's a current trend right now in tourism. So I think that can actually go with all the county, because farming, there's places now you can go just going and riding a horse. People want to unplug. So if we leverage and capitalize on the tourist industry that we want, then that will help support local business, because we're not this big, massive destination with overcrowded beaches, massive resorts, high dollar spending, but they're spending it in the local economy because they love the old Florida charm that they can't get in most other Florida destinations because it's been overrun. But what we also have to be careful, and why we have to make sure we target a specific type of tourism, is because the threat of teen beach takeovers.
Sure.
It's happening all over Florida.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we not only maintain that, but also the resources and tools for law enforcement if that does happen, because it will hurt our economy. They break into the businesses, they terrorize tourists and locals. In Clearwater, just a week or two ago, they brought out a gun and started shooting in the middle of the street. So we don't want that type of tourists. So we have to be very careful with that. But then another way that I think that we can bring additional economic boost is if the county partners with the state colleges and universities, and we have a particular niche here. We capitalize on the niche of type of workers that we are wanting to have in the county and keep in the county, and the businesses the counties are bringing in. I think that's going to be important to allow a smooth career pathway for our children that are graduating in the high schools of Santa Rosa County to go to a pathway into the colleges here in Santa Rosa County,
Right.
and then enter back into the workforce and be a productive citizen without having the thousands of dollars of debt and having a useless degree that maybe they could move to DC or they could move somewhere else, but they can't work here in Santa Rosa County where they maybe love and want to raise a family. And so if we have these pathways for vocational schools, trade schools, and even the contracting jobs the military are bringing in, I think, that can help bring in additional economic impacts for not just now, but our future generations of entrepreneurship and them staying in the community. I think that would be very impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does matter, what type of economic development you're looking for, and what you're planning for. And I think a lot of people are looking to unplug and kind of get to an area where they can just relax and just kind of get out of the busy larger cities, and this is a place for that.
It is. Even driving through the farmlands of the northern part of the county. If you're not used to it, even being used to it, I'll put my phone down and I just look around because it's so relaxing. And like you said, it just unplugs. And so many people are looking for that in this busy world. And that's something unique that Santa Rosa County can bring. But we have to make sure that we market and foster that in a certain way and don't allow us to become this Destin or Panama City, like I mentioned before.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Very good. So let's see here. Okay. Now, we're going to touch one more time here on the natural resources. What is your position on protecting Santa Rosa County's natural resources, waterways, and rural areas?
I mean, I think it is one of the top priorities because, like I said, once you have a natural resource run out, the natural resource is gone. You can't get it back.
Sure.
And 5% of the earth on the water in earth is only 5% is fresh water.
Yeah.
So it is a sacred and limited, extremely scarce resource that we have to protect. And I mentioned the water table in East Milton, but the water table that was under Fort Walton Beach that did supply water to not only Fort Walton Beach, but Destin, but it also pulled water over to the Gulf Breeze Navarre Midway area, dried up. It backfilled with salt water. So you can't use it. So we're already showing with basic human consumption, water tables are able to dry up. So now that the south end of the county is relying on the East Milton water table, we have to make sure that we're protecting that at all costs, which I brought up the data, why we can't have the data centers coming in. But, I brought up the soil classification, but what also makes that so imperative of paying attention to the soil classification is not only the underwater, but the surface level water, right?
Sure.
So a lot of the land and parcels back up to the Blackwater River have a downslope. So if we allow the trees to be cut down at the riverbank and we don't have protection to keep the trees on the riverbank, what happened several years ago was all the runoff and the pollution from all the development came into Blackwater River, and it forever changed the trajectory of the river flow.
Yep.
And we can't allow that to happen. I mean, that I don't think people understand the importance of not changing the trajectory of river flows and how the erosion affects everything. So making sure that is protected. behind in the south part of the county behind the Tourist Development Center, several times a year they put out no swimming because of the high bacteria levels. We need to figure out what is contaminating our water, where is there a breach, and how do we fix that? Because our water system, when it goes from coastline to wetlands to bayous to the river system, is all part of a ecosystem that we rely on to survive.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we're protecting that, along with the coral reefs and the turtles and the turtle, conservation. A lot of people don't think about, when you put on sunscreen, how that goes and it kills the coral reef.
Right.
And when that's gone, the fish are gone. So there's so many things that come into preserving our natural resources and waterways, along with our ag land, it's really imperative to act now and not act later, because when they're gone, they're gone. And I think another important thing to talk about is there's been some really good well water ordinances
Sure.
that have passed, right? But what there isn't right now, and I think we could pass, or it could be proposed to pass, is well field ordinances. So in Northwest Florida, but I'm going to talk about Santa Rosa County in particular, is the only area within Florida that allows us to have 4 septic tanks per acre. Everywhere else in Florida, you're allowed 1. And so if we put in well field protection ordinances, we could help protect our natural resources, but also slow the development in more of the rural areas.
Sure.
So when you have too many septic tanks in one area, it releases high concentrations of sulfur and nitrogen that all pollutes our water system. That goes into the groundwater, into the rivers, all of that stuff. So we need to take that into account, and then we can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone of protecting natural resources by also slowing the development down.
Right. Right. I feel like to some degree, the natural resources is a part of the economic development. People come to see the natural resources, to take part and to enjoy the natural resources that we have here in Santa Rosa County. So they kind of go hand in hand.
It's our revenue stream.
It's a revenue, right? Exactly.
Why would we keep polluting and get rid of our revenue stream?
Right. Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, very good. Let's see here. So our next question is, how can county government improve transparency and communication with the residents?
This is a good question, Kim.
Yeah.
So I think this is the easiest thing that can actually transpire in local government. And it is communication.
Yeah.
When I'm out there talking to the residents, they say, I understand we don't have all the information that the county commissioners have. I understand we don't have all the data points, and we don't understand every little thing that goes behind their decision. But what we would like to know is why.
Sure.
Just the why. So, even if it goes against what we thought was the best thing, if we have an understanding as to why, it would really help us really trust the government, trust the county commissioners in making the right decision. Because there's a lot of decisions that, voting yay is not the greatest for the community, and voting nay is not the greatest for the community. And they're trying to pick the best of the worst, right? And if we're forthcoming with the residents, I think that is going to naturally build a trust, and with just basic transparency. I think, if I'm county commissioner, I would hold a regular town hall meeting every month in my district. And I would encourage all residents from every district to come to make their voice heard, because the First Amendment protects their right to redress grievances within the government.
Sure.
They can petition the government. So come talk to me, see what the issues are. And I think it is extremely important to mention that we need to change the BOCC meeting time.
Right.
There is no reason why it's at 8:30 in the morning when everybody's at work. They can't make it. Our economy is not doing well. So you're asking people to reroute their entire day, take off, show up late to work, possibly lose income. When gas prices are up, they're trying to pay rent. They're trying to just support their family. It is almost like the commissioners are acting with impunity in order to make decisions and shove it down Santa Rosa County residents.
Right.
And I think that needs to be changed, as well as, having it at such a time they know people can't show up.
Yeah.
It may not be a direct violation of the First Amendment, but is definitely an indirect implied violation of the First Amendment right, because you are suppressing the ability, you are putting a meeting in a time where the residents cannot show up and petition the government and redress their grievances. And I think that has to change. I think that is imperative to change, to allow more people to get their voices heard and allow to speak out about some of these things that are happening within our county.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, what time does the local schools, the public schools, what time is it? I think a lot of them
Are in between.
That's all right. It's right about there. But
Right, or yeah, 8:39. It kind of depends on which school.
yeah,
But it is right when people are going to work, right when people are dropping their children off,
Right.
and I think that has to be changed.
yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see here. So our next question is, what are your priorities for public safety, emergency management, and now that we are in hurricane season right now, and we'll be in hurricane season for a few months, what are your thoughts there?
So public safety is extremely important, and it has to be taken seriously. So, I semi-touched on this earlier, but we have to make sure that our local law enforcement have the tools and resources in order to maintain law and order. That's paramount, right? But what we also have to look at is making sure fire and EMS have the proper resources and tools. And so, the north part of the county and the south part of the county are very different. And so their missions are going to be very different, or their tools or resources that they need are going to be very different. So we need to look at every facility when it comes to fire, EMS, and law enforcement in every district and make sure that they have the necessary means to meet their mission requirements and make sure that they have good response times in order to ensure public safety. Another thing I think is really important to mention is last year the sheriff mentioned empowering our citizens to use their Second Amendment right.
Sure.
So I think, for public safety, if we empower our citizens to use their God-given Second Amendment right, knowing that their local government and law enforcement backs them up, if they have an intruder break into their house and they feel their life is threatened, I think that says something about public safety.
Right.
That we know that we are going to be protected by our community, by our law enforcement officials, that we are able to use our Second Amendment right and we're not fearful of doing that. I think that is extremely important to bring up and empower the community with. When it comes to hurricane preparedness and emergency management, I think fiscal responsibility is going to be key here. Again, we are facing a $12 million deficit for the county right now. We have approximately $44 million in reserves, and I believe $25 million of that is hurricane relief funds. $25 million hurricane relief funds is like a tropical storm blowing through Santa Rosa County, right? It is pennies, compared to the cost of things. And then with the federal government having DOJ and cutting funds with FEMA, we have to take that in consideration. So we're not going to get as much federal aid as normal. So we need to make sure we are being fiscal responsible, not dipping into those hurricane funds, and really building that up in order to be prepared for a natural disaster. Florida is known for its crazy weather and thunderstorms and hurricanes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like we have a lot of them. We've been having a lot of them.
Right.
And making sure that we have the means necessary, like I said, it's just going to be paramount and imperative for this. But also when it comes to, with this, it ties into all this rapid development. Right now, things are happening with quantity over quality.
Sure.
And I think this is extremely important. So when you keep building homes as fast as you can without paying attention to the quality, and it's just numbers and high density projects, what is going to happen when a major 3, 4, or 5 hurricane comes through here and there's not good quality homes?
Right.
I think we need to put a stop to certain builders being able to do internal inspections of their own homes, because buyers are not really knowing what they're getting into when they get into a home, and how stable those homes are going to be and how they're going to maintain certain, if you have spacing this much in a joist, in the ceiling beam, and it's just a nail barely holding it together. What is 100-mile-an-hour winds going to do to that? And so holding developers and builders accountable to our land development code and certain ordinances and not allowing variances and things like that is going to be extremely important. And I have a personal story that I kind of want to mention with this is, my family bought a new home in a new development in East Milton, and I am firsthand knowledge of what can happen just with these storms, these typical summer thunderstorms that are happening, right? So we've had a lot of rain. There's been flooding, and there's been things like that, but that's just normal for storms, right? Well, my particular house, our yard was not graded properly. So our children joke whenever we have a thunderstorm that we have a summer pool.
Right.
Because our yard floods that much.
Yeah.
It is about this deep in our entire backyard where it's not draining.
Yeah.
So can you imagine if we get just a huge storm? Imagine what that's going to happen. On the side of my house is a river flowing down that my kids, fun for them.
Sure.
But, that they boogie board down the side between our house and the neighbor's house into our massively flooded street that doesn't have proper drainage.
Yeah.
So the erosion of all the sand these builders are putting down and just throwing, cheap turf on to make it look like you have a lawn is all eroding and coming into the streets. They did not put a drainage system in this intersection, so it backfills with all this sand, and then the water is almost going over the curb from our house to the neighbor's house for half of the street on a typical thunderstorm. So imagine a major hurricane coming through and the flooding that's going to happen when these builders are not doing, what they're supposed to infrastructure-wise and with drainage and the grading of the yards. So that brings me in the house, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in the house, we haven't had high winds. And again, my house is brand new. I have nails protruding from my baseboards. I can see all the drywall nails. I have drywall seams cracking floor to ceiling in my home. And when our 3- and 4-year-old like to play Hot Wheels on our walls and they run their Hot Wheels across the wall, our walls are crumbling.
Right.
Imagine a major category 3 or 4 or 5 hurricane coming through and wreaking havoc on all these quantity over quality homes and the amount of devastation and money and that the county is going to be at loss. The residents, the homeowners are going to be insurance claims. And so holding and having more standards for developing and the builders, I think, is going to be extremely important because hurricane readiness is not about just within the storm, but it is the cost after.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And I don't think the rivers for boogie boarding was a builder addition. I think that
It was
probably
not put in my sales contract that I had a water splash pad or a water slide. That was not part of it.
It might be nice, but I don't think it was.
Kids love it.
Yeah.
Parents don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Very good. So let's see here. And yep, we're still recording. Okay. Very good. So our next question here. We have really knocked these out. This is great. So our next question, if elected, what would be your top 3 priorities or at least the first few, number 1 priority during your first year in office?
Transparency, fiscal responsibility, and increasing the quality of life.
Okay.
And I think in answering all those questions, it's clear that that's kind of where I stand on everything because everything kind of ties in and goes back together. But I think those transparency, fiscal responsibility, and doing what I can to increase the quality of life is going to be very important. And that's what I would like to get done in my first year.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think your supporters and the rest of Santa Rosa County would really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's see here. So, okay. So, many. I'm gonna jump one question and then I'll come back, and then of course we want to give you the last word here, of course. So, many residents feel disconnected from local government. This is something we've been hearing. What would you do to ensure their voices are heard and represented at the county level?
So I touched on that a little bit previously with transparency. But to go in a little bit further, not just the town hall meetings, trying to change the BOCC meetings, just open communication. So having a military background, an open door policy is really big in the military. So making sure the residents know they can come to me no matter what district they're in. They are able to be listened to, whether it is telephone call, face-to-face, email, text, and that I would respond no matter what the issue is in a timely manner, right? I never know what my schedule is going to be, so it may take a couple days, but always getting back to the residents and then letting them know that they have a voice to be heard. And so if we start giving more opportunities for the citizens and the residents to be able to petition the government, like I said, which is our First Amendment right, I think that will help bridge the gap between the current distrust and discontent from the citizens to the county commissioners, as well as making sure as a county commissioner, would never degrade a citizen and their voice up at that podium.
Right.
Ever. I think that I think it's disheartening and it's distasteful. And we are paid for, the citizens pay our salary. We're an elected official, and they should be able to speak to us however we want.
Right.
And we should have to have a level of respect back because that is our job and that's what they've elected us to do.
Right.
So being able to bridge that gap of the distrust with transparency and communication and going, you do have a voice because we are going to make sure these are at times where you can have a voice, I think can really bridge the gap for the residents.
Right. Absolutely. It builds trust.
Yeah.
It builds trust. Let's see here. Now we're down to our last question. But I wanted to bring up something and it goes with our last question, something we had talked just before we got started rolling here. So with your campaigning, you were able to acquire all the signatures needed to get on the ballot.
That's correct.
That's correct. And how did that take place? How did you go about doing that?
So I joined the race late. I happened to fall ill the first 2 weeks that I joined the race and was in the hospital. So I only had 4 weeks left.
Right.
And my team was myself, my husband when he took off work. Now, his mom did help a handful of times when she could, and I had one other person, I think, sit twice for me.
Right.
But outside of that, I was at the tax office every single day speaking to the residents on my own. I brought my 3-year-old, who is now 4, with me many times of the week to just get in and talk to the residents. And we were able to get all those petitions with no team within 4 weeks by speaking and being honest and transparent and listening to the residents of Santa Rosa County.
Yeah. That's outstanding.
Thank you.
That's really great. Which that leads us into our very last question, which is, what message would you like to leave with the District 2 voters, Santa Rosa County, as they prepare to cast their ballots?
So I would like to let all the residents know to do your homework and research on every single candidate, to include myself. Do not leave me out of that. You should include me and every other candidate and do your research and due diligence. And I have trust and faith in the community that when it's time to go cast their ballots on August 18th, that they will make the right decision for the community based off of their research and their values and where they align. I have faith and confidence in the voters of Santa Rosa County.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said this. We have some pretty smart people here. We really do. And so that's some good words. Where can they find you?
So my website is Nisewonger for Florida, nisewongerforflorida.com. And then I have a Facebook page that is Erin Nisewonger, County Commissioner, District 2. So that's where you can find all my information, my platform, reach out. Any email, you can email me at enisewonger, NISEWONGER77@gmail.com. You also can give me a call. That information is located in public record. And I've answered every call, phone call, text message, email, Facebook, I make sure that I am very transparent of where I'm at, and any questions you have to ask, feel free to reach out, and I'd be more than willing to sit down with you face to face, or whether it's social media, the texting or whatever, direct message. I'm more than willing to sit down with the residents and get to know everyone and allow you to get to know me personally and how I am face to face.
Right. Right. All right. Well, very good. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We are so glad we got her to come in and speak to everybody a little bit. So if you need to, if you want to, you can reach out. You can find her online, on social media. She is open to taking your calls and taking your emails. So you can do that research. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching today's Blackwater Report. I'm Ken. That's Erin. And until next time, take care.